morning. This meeting is hereby called to order. Today is Friday, January 27th. It's 9:04. It's pretty close to 9 a.m. And welcome everyone, State Game Commissioners, New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, and of course, our members of the public. Thank you so much for being here today and joining us. It's a virtual meeting via Zoom. And I think we should be able to cover this in the morning. A lot of stuff is happening here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beautiful sunshine, great, gorgeous New Mexico skies. So since this meeting is now called to order, our next agenda item is a roll call. Director, can you please give us a roll call?
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Fulford.
Here.
Vice Chair Archuleta.
Here.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you, Director, Secretary of the State Game Commission. I'd like to have an introduction of guests. In person, it's just wonderful to see all the faces. So if we may, Tristana, I'm going to turn this over to you or to the director. How would you like us to do the guests here?
Madam Chair, I just pushed a message out to everybody, and so I will wait to see if anyone raises their hands for introduction.
Perfect. Well, we wait for that.
Okay.
Commissioners, why don't we just do a quick round the robin? I'll go first. I'll turn it over to the vice chair, and then we'll go in alphabetical order, then to the attorney general, to those that are at the Department of Game and Fish. I'll let Director Sloan, and then do some introductions, or the people there could do their introductions. And then Tristana, I'll let you take the control, the panel. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm the chair of the New Mexico State Game Commission, and my name is Sharon Salazar Hickey.
And I'm Vice Chair Dina Archuleta. Commissioner Fulfer.
Commissioner Fulfer from JAL.
Cheers to Lopez from Savoya, Commissioner. I'm actually in San Juan, New Mexico today, so.
Attorney General.
Yes, Assistant Attorney General Valerie Joe, but counsel to the Commission.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mike Sloan, Director of the Department.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Tim Simbal, Colonel of Field Operations Division.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Gavin Lujan, CIO, Game and Fish.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Stuart Liley, Chief of Wildlife.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commission, members of the public, James Pittman, Education.
Okay, and Madam Chair, I'm Tristana Bickford. I'm the department's Assistant Chief of Education. It looks like we currently have 4 hands raised. So I am going to unmute Brandon Wynn. Oh, there we go. We have a few more hands raised now. Brandon, you are unmuted.
Thank you, Tristiana. Hi, this is Brandon Wynn from Albuquerque. I'm just a member of the public logging in to see what's going on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Carrie, you are unmuted.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Carrie Romero with the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides.
Thank you, Carrie. Mark Mantini, you are now unmuted.
Madam Commissioner, Commission members, members of the public, staff, Mark Mantini, Powati Village, Laguna Pueblo, Cibola County. You can't see my hat today, though. I'm sorry.
And Matt Wender, you are permitted to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Matt Wonder, Chief of Ecological Environmental Planning Division, Game and Fish, Santa Fe.
And Madam Chair, that is all the hands we have raised at this point.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Tristana. That was wonderful. And actually, I know there are probably a lot more people out there watching and listening, streaming with us. And it's nice to see those four or hear from those four being present. And again, it's a wonderful day. So,
Madam Chair. Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one more raise his hand that came in a little bit late. If we have time for John Crenshaw.
Oh my gosh, of course. Yes,
okay.
Yes, please.
John, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. And for that warm welcome, Madam Chair. John Crenshaw, President of the Board of the New Mexico Wildlife Federation. Good to see all the smiling faces again.
Oh, amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. It's nice to hear your voice, and I wish I could see you in person too. Okay, thank you, Tristana. Let's proceed. And everyone who's here on the stream with us, all of our guests, Department of Game and Fish and commissioners, Attorney General, I want you all to know that I really do think we can get through in the morning. I know a lot of stuff is happening at the Capitol, good stuff, and I thank our legislatures, our governor for all that good stuff happening. So next on the list is the approval of our agenda. That's item number 4. And everybody, if you want to follow along, it's on our website at the Department of Game and Fish. And commissioners, we always go right into discussion. Any edits, comments about our agenda? I see a nod, shaking her head. Vice Chair, commissioners? Nope. Okay. Well, then do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Well, a motion to approve the agenda as stated on the website. And a second of a motion from Commissioner Lopez and a second from Vice Chair. Perfect. Because we're on Zoom rather than do a voice, I think we probably should do a roll call vote. Director, please. Roll call
Commissioner
vote.
Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta.
Yes.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Beautiful. Motion passed. So now let's go to item number 5, executive session, which is closed to the public. Vice Chair, can you please proceed with the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I don't have the language in front of me that takes us directly into the. Unfortunately, I don't have it with. I didn't receive that.
Okay.
But I'd like to make a motion to take us into closed session, and I'm going to paraphrase. Madam Attorney General, please correct me if I go off script too far. But
actually, Vice Chair. Vice Chair, I could also rely on our secretary who would help you since he's technically the records. Director Sloan, can you help with the wording of that motion for us?
I am working on pulling it up right now.
I believe otherwise
if not,
you can use the agenda because it does say the subsection
precise language
pursuant to section 10.
Okay.
The motion would be to move to enter executive session pursuant to section 10-15-1 H8 NMSA 1978 and pursuant to section 10-15-1 H8 NMSA for the purpose of discussing the purchase, acquisition, or disposal, and for attorney-client privilege litigation. And I think that's sufficient, correct?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we go into executive session as read by the secretary.
Beautiful, perfect, Vice Chair. Thank you. Second?
Second.
And thank you, Commissioner Fulfer. All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta.
Yes.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are now going into executive session for members of the public. I don't believe this should be too long. I'm hoping to be back by 10 o'clock or sooner. So that's just an FYI. And thank you again for Game and Fish for, proceeding with this very efficient meeting. So here we go. We're offline. Thank you. This meeting is back in session. The New Mexico State Game Commission is back in session. It's 1 minute after 10 a.m. and we're doing fantastic. Let me make an announcement that the commission had adjourned into executive session, closed to the public, and during the executive session, the commission discussed only those matters specified in its motion to adjourn, and it took no action as to any matter. But that said, I believe, Vice Chair, you are ready to say something.
Yes, Madam Chair, in accordance with executive session item A2, I would make a motion that we do not accept the offer on the table.
Not
Second.
A2, it's A1, excuse me,
A2.
A2, A Apple
That's
2, Santa Fe
yes, that's-
County Record 22-202 disposition of Richards Avenue property, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
correct, Madam Chair.
The motion is not to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fulford. Roll call, please. Vote, roll call vote. Director Sloan.
Commissioner Lopez,
You're muted, Commissioner Lopez.
Yes, to reject the offer.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta,
Yes.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
very good. Well, thank you,
Madam
Vice Chair.
Chair.
Do you have another motion?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I'd like to direct the Game and Fish Department to proceed with acquiring a realtor to put this piece of property back on the market.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Fulfer. Director Sloan, we need a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta,
Yes.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for a very good executive session. We had 4 agenda items that we thoroughly discussed, and I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate today's vote. Good job, everyone. So moving on to agenda item number 7, it's our consent agenda, where we are looking at approving our minutes of December 8th, 2022, and revocations. Vice Chair, do you have something to say?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Wow. Very good, commissioners. Director, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta,
Yes.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
very good. Thank you. So now one of our favorite agenda items, and I love to hear, we have it twice on our agenda. First, agenda item number 8, general public comments. And Ms. Bickford, I understand we had some people earlier this morning. Has anybody raised their hand to give us some general public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I currently have 3 hands. I expect a few more, but we are going to start with Mark Mantini. Mark, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, Mark Montini.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner, or sorry, Madam Chair, Commissioners, members of the public and staff. My name is Mark Matini. I live in Pewaukee Village, Laguna Pueblo, Cibola County. I speak only for myself and my family, although I am an active member of backcountry hunters and anglers and defenders of wildlife. As something different, I have no concerns to share today. I want today to simply thank the Commission and New Mexico Department of Game and Fish for maintaining their continuing partnerships with the Land Office and BLM, supporting hunter access to state trust lands. I have this year had my own first experiences with the orange access signs and carry map, and unlike many previous experiences, I found less disturbed hunting areas that are not usually victims of endless noise and tracks from off-highway vehicles or trash. So I thank you for your continued work. I'm sure it takes a great deal of effort to maintain this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we will have Carrie Romero. Carrie, you are unmuted.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Carrie Romero on behalf of the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides. I wanted to comment quickly on the letter that I sent you all prior to the previously canceled meeting. I appreciate you all taking the time to read over our request to direct the department to do a better job when it comes to communicating with the public regarding recreational access to waters located on private land. Trespass on private lands as a result of the Supreme Court ruling has become a major problem. But unfortunately, we can't prove this unless the department does a better job of tracking the trespass complaints. Trespass on private lands surrounding the public waters is really where the root of the issue is at. And landowners are frustrated, and they express their frustrations to the Council of Outfitters and Guides because they feel like their complaints to the department are falling on deaf ears. They're frustrated with the disrespectful public. They are frustrated with the department's lack of action. And they are frustrated because they feel that their basic private property rights are being violated because they are unable to protect their private land. Additionally, from an environmental standpoint, landowners are not wanting to invest money in conservation or riparian restoration because they can't prevent the public from destroying their investments. Right now, and until the U.S. Supreme Court ruling or makes a ruling on this matter, we know that we can't prevent the public from recreating in a stream bed. But the Department of Game and Fish needs to do a better job of assuring landowners that they still have the ability to protect and control what happens on their private land. The department needs to state in writing that public waters cannot be accessed through dry private land, and this includes walking along the bank of a waterway. We encourage the Commission to please give this issue serious consideration. Thank you, and have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And Madam Chair, next we're going to have Brandon Wynn. Brandon, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, Commissioners. So I've been going to Game Commission meetings on a very consistent basis and paying attention to what the Commission does, rules and stuff since 1994. So I've been through 8 4-year rule cycles over those 28 years. And so over those 8 cycles over 28 years, the Game Commission has never, and I think that this is true, because I've asked a lot of people on both sides of the issue to confirm this, and no one's been able to say that this is incorrect. The Game Commission has never moved a single tag from the private system to the public draw system. It's only increased significantly over those 28 years. the number of their private versus public, right? The number of licenses is fixed. So if you increase the private side, you have to decrease the public side. And the inverse is also true. But you've only done one thing for 28 years, 8 rule cycles. And this commission right now, during the last year's 4-year rule cycle, continued batting 1,000 as all the prior commissions did. And so why does this matter? Because private tags are 75% of the time non-resident tags that most often go to non-residents that are wealthy enough to pay an astronomical private fee to get the tag, right? So you've only grown that part of the pie, and you've never grown the public side of the pie. You've never done it. Like, I mean, I'm not asking you to make wholesale change, but I just think after 8 quadrennial rule cycle setting hearings that the Game Commission could find literally a handful of tags that could be public, right? So that's what I'm saying is I'm expressing my disappointment with this commission for just following the same pattern that's been going on for, the 28 years that I've been watching close, but it's really 50 now. So I would ask that, someone's got to step up and at least make a microscopic change in this ratio of private to public and non-resident to resident, because that's what it boils down to. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Kristana, anybody else?
Madam Chair, that was the last hand that I had raised.
Very good. Commissioners, I like to see all of us, typically when we're present in a physical meeting, we do an excellent job of listening. It's not, this agenda item is not for us to speak or to engage because it's public comment. We want to hear from them. But Vice Chair, do you have some thoughts, or commissioners, in terms of the concept of public comment? Because every single time we are in rulemaking, it's an important legal aspect of our job. It's critical that we do a good job of listening. So I'm just throwing that out for the commissioners. Some thoughts or comments about public comment in general, just, general.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to say that for me, it's really where I've learned the most about the policies and rulemaking is really to hear the comments of the public and where we're moving. And actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a comment or ask the staff on one of the issues that came up today in today's call, the issue of engagement on private land that was brought up about not being able to report or have a systematic way of calling in to talk, and they're going to the outfitters instead to make comments to them. Mike or Mr. Director, we talked earlier about there being a hotline that is anonymous that could be used that's already set up, that we could use to give to the public to call in those complaints so that we could see, and track those comments so that we could better deal with these sort of issues. And I'd like to direct the staff to put that onto the website, and feel free to share with others to share that across the public to make sure that folks have access and that there's a way for the commission and the department to actually track those issues.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, that's correct. You and I discussed the Operation Game Thief as a call-in line that currently exists that people could call and file those or make a complaint about trespass that would be recorded. I think that would be the simplest method, but certainly most of the landowners in the area know our officers, and Tim, I think, can speak to this. Our officers will respond when they're called. It doesn't always happen that same day, and certainly we try and do the best that we can. So I don't know, Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, certainly, that is the case. These officers live in those communities. They do have good relationships with multiple landowners in those areas. And if somebody wants to call an officer directly, that's one avenue. And of course, Operation Game Thief, if somebody wants to remain anonymous, and that is tracked very well, that's another way that they can go. They can go on our website and file a complaint online, or also on the 1-800 number.
Great. So maybe we could just add something to the website that says, if you have any other issues, to please go ahead and, we can be more specific than that. I don't want people to call and tell you their groceries didn't arrive, but, something more specific if we can word that in a way that, is useful to the landowners.
We'll work on that and get it done.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Director, Department, for making that
Madam Chair?
clear. Additional, yes, Commissioner Lopez.
I do have a question for the director and the Colonel of Field Operations regarding the hotline. So during the day, if they call the Operation Game Thief hotline, does that go to the office, or does that still go to the central dispatch in Las Vegas?
It's all going to go through central dispatch through state police. So it's 24/7.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Fulfer, did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say I appreciate the public comments. That's really been very helpful for me trying to learn everything, but appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair, I thank you for targeting the issue of the hotline and focusing on that, and certainly you too, Commissioner Lopez. And like Commissioner Fulfer, I was looking at this on a broader perspective because I take copious notes. I think you see me in person, just scribbling away. And I'm just going to do a shout out, if you all don't mind. Mark Mattini, Carrie Romero, and Brandon Wynn. So many of our regulars. I love the Pueblos. I love these hunter access issues. The commissioners receive so many emails, and we read them all. Trust me. We may not reply to every one of them, but we read them. And so I love the issues of hunter access. I love the idea about the stream access. I don't want to see anybody hurt, and I want to see good behavior, not a chilling effects from litigation on stream access. And then of course this, so Carrie Romero, thank you as always. And last is best in the treasure chest, Brandon Wynn, Lord Almighty, the issue of our residents versus non-residents and how we affect so many people in our state with regard to our rulemaking. And it's a very important issue. So thank you for always bringing that up and reminding us. So we're listening, and good job, Tristana, for having a chat and letting our public see where we are on the chat with regard to our agenda. Do we have anybody else commenting, public? Earlier we had John Crenshaw. We didn't hear from John Crenshaw.
Madam Chair, I have not seen John Crenshaw raise his hand, but John Ebbs has raised his hand. If I can bring him in and allow him his 3 minutes.
Okay, I love it. I'll go mute.
John.
Good morning. It says John Ebbs.
Yes, John Ebbs, you are unmuted. John, if you could unmute, there you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me speak. This is my first time on, so I had a question. The last time I went deer hunting, I noticed a lot of private property owners had deer all over their yards, and we got lucky and we got a deer, and we noticed the deer was a very young deer, and it had a very fatty liver on it, which means these property owners, the reason those deer are all over their yards is they're feeding them. Now, is something being done to control that? Because it's bad for the deer's health. And it's also bad for hunter and property owner relationships, because the property owners get a feeling of ownership over these wild animals, and it's not good for anyone. Is there something being done about that? My question is open for anyone who knows the answer.
Thank you, John Ebbs. Typically for our public comment, it's designed to listen and not to engage in a conversation in a public forum. So what I would like to invite you to do is, after this meeting, maybe reach out to the department. I don't know if that's a Stuart Lively question or Mike, Director, how it's, what would you recommend?
I'm Chair, probably a little bit of both, but it's probably a place to start would be with Tim Symbol.
Oh, thank you. I love it. Okay.
Practices are.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. And all of these comments, I want to, yes, we hear you. We hear you. So thank you. Tristana, do we have anybody else on the line?
Yes, John Crenshaw had raised his hand, so I will bring him in. John, you are unmuted.
Good morning.
Well, good morning and thank you. I was kind of going to hold off till the end of the meeting, but since the invitation was so nice, I'll just ramble on now. Thank you very much. One, I'd really like to real quick address Kerry Cox Romero's concerns. I certainly respect them. And it was very clear in the Supreme Court decision that trespass across private land to access those streams is illegal. And in the fishing proclamation, and I was looking for the most current version, but I believe that was made clear there. We had wanted, as an organization, to try to possibly bring some suggested rules to the commission and perhaps legislation to fill gaps to the legislature. But with the stream access issue and litigation now before the U.S. Supreme Court, it was inadvisable to do that at that time. But it is, in the meantime, the trespass is a concern. It should be addressed, and I hope it will be. I would add that the county sheriff, deputy sheriffs, and state police also have authority over trespass. And I don't know if they're even aware that, as a large group, that this is an issue, and that the stream access rules have really changed a lot in just the last year. And on the hotline, I think that's wonderful. And I would also suggest, if you wanted to expand on that a little bit, that a central place to report, for instance, gates that are, speaking of state trust lands, but also Forest Service and BLM, there's an ongoing problem with landowners locking gates and blocking roads and so on, that should be public access. And I know the commission and the state land office and the department are all fighting that constantly, but it would really be handy for a hunter to be able to report that and have and know that they can report it. I think they already could, just don't know where to and how, and to publicize that. And those are a couple of things. I also wanted to just mention the legislature is under full steam. There are 3 bills before the legislature right now. One is going to be the license fee adjustments, which is way past due. It'll be 18 years since, if this goes into effect, since the last meaningful adjustment that the department has. The Wildlife Federation is going to support that. And then 2 bills from Representative McQueen, trying to test the waters, I guess, on which way to jump. But One, to move the Department of Game and Fish under the Secretary of the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department and make the commission an advisory board. He's fully aware that the Wildlife Federation has and will again oppose that bill. I won't go into the reasons right now, but there are many. And then a bill to strengthen the commission and I think really improve it. And we will be supporting that one. And thank you very much. But yes, there was a lot. That's kind of why I was waiting for the end.
Well, we're going to have another general public comment session. So thank you, everybody. Tristana, did we have anybody else?
Madam Chair, I do not have any more hands raised at this time.
Beautiful. Okay, so that said, I'm excited to go into agenda item number 9. This is the election of our chair and vice chair. I can't believe it's January 2023. I have had a wonderful time serving as chair of the New Mexico State Game Commission, working closely with the Department of Game and Fish, all of their personnel, and the members of the public. I don't meet personally with everybody as the chair, but I will tell you that it is an honor to serve as chair. It's an important leadership position, an important leadership role. That said, I think tenure is an important thing to consider. And now that I've served a good 2 full years, I would like to recommend Vice Chair Dina Archuleta as the next chair. I can't say enough good things about the vice chair because I know her personally, but I also know that she has a wealth of experience serving as a public servant in many capacities, and her broad-based experience makes her not only a phenomenal commissioner as our designee on conservation, but I think her experience also is phenomenal when it comes to a leadership role. For members of the public, the department, and then of course commissioners, let me give you some specifics about Dina. She joined the Vogel Group after serving as the Senior Director for Federal Affairs at the ExxonMobil Corporation. She oversaw ExxonMobil's engagement with the White House, all federal agencies, and the U.S. Senate. So she's very savvy when it comes to a high-level corporate public service. She previously served as ExxonMobil's government relations manager in New Mexico, where she was the principal point of contact with the governor's office, state legislators, statewide elected and appointed officials, and other organizations in New Mexico. And prior to her time at ExxonMobil, she was actually a member of President Obama's Energy and Environment Transition Team. So again, that expertise that she has in the environment is phenomenal. She served the administration as both the senior advisor to the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Water and Science in the Department of the Interior, where she oversaw Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Geological Survey. So she has extensive background in water policy, again, which is so important for all aspects of the Department of Game and Fish, natural resources, energy policy, preservation of historic treasures. Early in her career, she was also elected to a seat in the New Mexico Bernalillo County Commission. So she knows the importance of listening to people. She knows she's not an elected official on the commission, but she knows the importance of listening to everybody with respect. And during her time at Bernalillo, she was the Southwest Regional Director for the Wilderness Society and a board chair member of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Authority. I could go on and on and on. So this is open for discussion before I make a motion. Any other commissioners want to say something other than what I just said?
A glowing report like that, I'll have to second your motion.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. Well, I wasn't really making a motion. That was really just a discussion about her wonderful qualifications. I'm so honored to stay on the commission. As far as I know, I'm still on the commission. I think what I'd like everybody to know is that I am going to be a little bit more visible. You're going to see a lot more of me, I think, outside of my role as chair. As a native New Mexican, I'm going to just kind of say something. As a native New Mexican, the resident issue is so near and dear to my heart. I have like 300 or 400 years of family in New Mexico. And being able to represent District 4, Taos, Colfax, Union, Mora, Harding, let me see, Santa Fe, you know, who am I missing? San Miguel, Torrance, Guadalupe, Quay. I love northern New Mexico, northeast New Mexico, but quite honestly, as chair, it's the whole state, all of the districts. I love the department. I consider them a family. I said that on day one. And I consider New Mexico and my country, the United States. I'm just so blessed. So anyway, I'll make a motion. I hereby move to make or to elect Dina Archuleta as the chair of this New Mexico State Game Commission for the year January through December 2023. Second?
Second.
Director, roll call vote, please.
It's a technicality, but we usually elect in January of 24, and you just ended her term in December, so maybe we.
I'll revise the motion through January 24. Thank you. That's why you're the secretary. You watch the, good, excellent. Motion modified and seconded.
Second.
Yes, okay. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Archuleta.
Yes, and thank you.
Chair Salazar Hickey.
Yes.
It passes
Motion
unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before I pass the gavel to Dina Archuleta, let's continue this agenda item because I too would like to nominate someone as vice chair. And it should not come as a surprise to anyone that one of our commissioners is also phenomenal, like our chair, Dina Archuleta. This is Tercio Lopez. Tercio Lopez was born and raised in Cebolla, New Mexico. He is a rancher and he is a commissioner, true blue-blooded northern New Mexican, but his heart is in wildlife and state game and fish. He is a New Mexico State University graduate. He worked for the New Mexico State government for 12 years, and now he works at DOE, Los Alamos National Laboratory, in the security field. Thank you for his public service. Excellent job. He also worked for various natural resource management agencies early in his career. And for many of you who know Tercio on a personal level, he is a single father of a beautiful daughter and a family man. I think Tercio has some very good roots. So anyway, I've seen Tercio and worked with him for the last 2 years, and I'm very honored to nominate Tercio as vice chair. And by the way, I will also add, Commissioner Lopez did an excellent job serving as the New Mexico State Game Commission representative leader role at the WAFA conference that we had early in January. I am, for personal reasons, I'm stepping down as chair because my calendar for 2023 is very busy. And like vice chair, I will be doing some Zoom meetings. And Tercio, you just automatically stepped up to the plate. I know Commissioner Fulfer, you do the same. But a big thank you, Commissioner Lopez, for this service, the public service that you did, and then also for the WAFA.
You're welcome.
Madam
Second.
Chair, yeah, we second as well.
Okay.
You've got 2 seconds.
Okay, so Director Sloan, the motion, to be clear, is electing Tercio Lopez as vice chair from January 23 through January 24 as vice chair of the New Mexico State Game Commission. And seconded by vice chair Dina Archuleta.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Chair Archuleta,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickey.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So, Chair, I'm passing the gavel to you. She just got it. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to go ahead and move on to item 10 on our agenda, Open Meetings Act resolution. And with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney General Valerie Joe.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Congratulations on your new offices or new titles and new positions. So this is the annual open meetings resolution. It's just to briefly review, as we all know, these wonderful requirements that allow the public to understand exactly what the Game Commission is doing, how it provides the notice, 10 days for a regular meeting with the agenda posted 72 hours in advance, at least. You know, earlier is good too, if it's possible. And then if there are special meetings, that also requires a 72 hours notice, again, with an agenda 72 hours in advance. And then if there is some sort of catastrophic emergency that's going to affect, you know, the department and the Game Commission as a whole, there is the ability to have a meeting within 24 hours, and then you would post the agenda as quickly as possible. Also within your open meetings resolution, it does indicate the ability for those who need assistance due to you know, audio, visual, or any other types of means where they might need to access a meeting. I think, you know, broadcasting is a good way for the commission to make sure that people may already have those things enabled on their devices. So, you know, that's one way of doing it. But if they did want to attend a meeting in person and needed that accommodation, the Department of Game and Fish is you know, ready, willing, and able to assist with that. Also added last year was the voting information, just so that it was clear for all of the members and the public how votes will go for different provisions. Are there any questions on those updates? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, any comments on that? Great. Thank you so much, Attorney General. Really appreciate your help on that. Let's go ahead and move to item 11. Director Sloan, I'll pitch it to you to walk us through the meeting dates, locations for 2023 meetings.
Actually, Chair Archuleta, Madam Chair, I believe that is an action item. And so I would like to move to accept as read the Open Meetings Act resolution that was read into the commission record by Assistant Attorney General Valerie Joe. That is my motion to accept it. But I do want to comment that the Attorney General's office does an excellent job. Like the Department of Game and Fish Director, Michael Sloan, they manage these meetings very well to ensure that we have transparency and respect for everyone. So I move to accept.
Thank you very much. May I have a second?
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Director, we probably should do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Salazar Hickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Fulfer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Yes.
Chair Archuleta.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Appreciate that stopping us to make sure that we got that corrected. And let's go ahead and now move on to Director Sloan's piece of the meeting dates and locations for 2023 meetings.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, it's a pretty straightforward presentation. It's just one slide. If you want to go ahead and move that to the next slide. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scheduled meetings. We think we'll be able to cover all of the materials required to get us through a year. Obviously, today's meeting is a virtual meeting. We're proposing April 21st in Roswell at our Roswell office. July 21st will either be a virtual or we could meet in Albuquerque. We don't feel like we'll have a lot of material to cover at that meeting, so virtual might be simplest. August 25th in beautiful Raton, New Mexico at our office there. That would be the likely location at this point anyway. October 20th in Farmington, and then swinging back around to Santa Fe in January 12th. It's been a while since we've been to most of these locations, so felt like it was time to spread our wings a little bit and see some of the other parts of the state.
Thank you, Director. Commissioners, any comments or questions on the meeting agendas or the meeting locations and dates? Looks like a really good opportunity for new locations, and I'm speaking for myself, very excited about going to some of the spots. So thank you very much, Director. Let's go ahead and move on to item 12. The department's fiscal year 2022 statement and audit this is an action item. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura Beltran-Schmidt. Schmitz, sorry, I said that incorrectly. She's with CLA Auditor.
Madam Chair,
Welcome.
give her just a minute. I just promoted her to panelist, so give her a minute to join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm well. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Pardon me. Bear with me 1 second while I get my screen set up, please. Pardon me.
No worries. You take your time.
Okay. Okay, I believe everybody should be able to see the presentation.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Now something's over here. Pardon me. Okay, here we go. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission and the public. First of all, I'd like to begin by congratulating Commissioner Archuleta and Commissioner Lopez on your newly elected position. So congratulations to you both. And of course, Commissioner Salazar Hickey, it's always been a pleasure, working with you in this capacity. So congratulations to you as well on now this next transition into your life cycle here. So always great to be here with the department. Again, my name is Laura Beltran-Schmidt. I'm a principal with CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, and I'm here to present the audit results for the department's year-end June 30, 2022. We did have, and we held an exit conference on October 25th, 2022, which included Commissioner Salazar Hickey, Director Sloan, ASD Chief Paul Varela, Budget Director Joe Miano, and Accountant Auditor Kelly Barn. And that was held in a closed session because due to the State Audit Act in Mexico, which we have to follow, before we are able to disclose the results to the full commission and members of the public, we have to wait for the audit to be released by the New Mexico Office of the State Auditor. That is why we held that exit conference in closed session, and the audit has now been officially released by the State Auditor's Office, and this is our responsibility to communicate the results to the commission as a whole. There we go. I'll be going through some required communications that are very standard. I'll be going through relatively quickly. However, if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to interrupt me as I'm going through. I will also be available to answer any questions at the end. Our responsibility under our generally accepted auditing standards is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of the department's financial statements in conformity with generally accepted auditing principles. I'm sorry, generally accepted auditing standards. We plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable, not absolute assurance. And the reason why that is important is a reminder that an audit does not test 100% of the financial transactions. We perform our testing on a sample basis. Hence, we provide reasonable assurance on the financial statements, balances, and disclosures contained therein. We performed our audit in according to our plan, scope, and timing that was discussed during the entrance conference with key personnel involved in management, and that was discussed in July when we started our planning for the audit. The financial statements, now that they are released, are to be taken into consideration in their entirety. If the department is using these financial statements to obtain additional grant funding or provide information to any member outside of the department, you are to include the whole set of financial statements. We as the auditors are not performing any additional procedures past our audit date. So it is important to make sure that all sets and all data contained is included and provided as necessary. Management is responsible for this accounting policies of the department, which are included and outlined in Note 2 of the department's financial statements. There were no significant changes to any department policies or procedures. However, there was a new pronouncement that was issued by GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that was implemented this year by the department, the lease standard. This was implemented by all governmental entities in the United States. So this was a required pronouncement change for all governmental entities. And it changed, updated the department's statement of net position by incorporating an additional right to use asset and then a correlating liability for your what were previously identified as your operating leases. Really the lease in question here that caused this additional change is your office in Las Cruces was the lease that was the asset and then liability that was associated with it. Although the department does have other leases, they did not meet the scope and criteria identified and outlined by this standard, so they were not included in this liability. There were no financial statement disclosures that were deemed particularly sensitive. All statements and disclosures are very standard for a governmental agency in the state of New Mexico. The full set of financial statements does include additional supplementary information, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is the acronym CFA on the slide, and additional schedules that are required by the New Mexico Office of the State Auditor are also included in your full set of financial statements. We do perform additional procedures on those supplemental schedules in order to provide an in relation to opinion on those statements, as those numbers do correlate to your overall financial statements and financial position. Prior to our submission of the audit to the state auditor, we did obtain a representation letter signed by ASD Chief Paul Varela and Director Sloan to identify that everything that was provided to us was given to us in whole. All of our questions were answered, and we really appreciate the time and effort that was given to us by all members of ASD as we worked through our audit. There were no past adjusting journal entries. This would be if we identified any potential errors that didn't rise to a materiality threshold. We didn't identify any such errors. There were no adjustments that we identified through our audit as a whole. Certainly no difficulties. If any of these matters did arise during our audit, we'd be required to discuss those with you. And certainly if there was anything egregious, we would have brought that to your attention prior to this meeting. So nothing of that nature happened, and we did not have any meetings with members of the commission prior to this conversation regarding any issues with management or obtaining information that we needed for the audit. Everybody was very pleasant to work with, as usual. There were some new changes as well to simply the form and content of our auditor's report. So in addition to implementing a new GASB pronouncement, there was a new auditing standard that we had to issue as well. No significant impact other than some additional detail on the auditor's report and reorganization of the format of the auditor's report. Primarily that we're including our opinion as the first paragraph, where it used to be the fifth paragraph. So the auditing standards require us to now bring that front and center to identify and highlight if there were any issues, of which there were none. The department did receive a clean opinion. We'll go through that in just a second, but it was just a formatting matter that was updated. And along with that update, we are required now to formally disclose to you all any risks that are identified as part of our audit planning process. The risks here of management override of controls and revenue recognition, these are standard risks that auditors are required to take into consideration with any audit, no matter the type of agency, no matter the type of entity, and no matter the size of the organization, because this is a risk everywhere. So we incorporate procedures such as journal entry testing, requesting documented approvals when we are asking for support. And that is all to ensure that the agency is following its systems and designs of controls. With the new GASB implementation that I spoke about, the lease standard, of course, that was inherently an additional risk this year, simply because it's new. So that was the only reason. All entities that were implementing this GASB this year, that's going to be a risk whenever there's a new pronouncement. And completeness, that underneath that GASB implementation, it was the completeness, the presentation, and the valuation. Because there was a lot that was taken into consideration for that. The department did a great job implementing this standard and providing adequate documentation for me to audit, and then for us to ultimately record the activity during the year. So the department did a great job with this implementation. Summary of auditors' results. We render 2 opinions in the reports that we provide with the department's financial statements. We have our standard audit report, whereby we rendered an unmodified opinion. Unmodified, that means clean opinion. That's the highest. That's what you want to achieve. Meaning, based on the work that my team was able to perform, we felt comfortable that the balances and disclosures are fairly stated. We also render an opinion over the department's compliance with its federal programs and its federal activity. And we're rendering an unmodified opinion there as well. Again, meaning for the programs that we tested, the department materially complied with the requirements under those respective grants. The grants that we tested are listed right below. It was the Fish and Wildlife Cluster. And then this year, under the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, that was signed into law by President Biden in March of 2021, the department did receive some funding for the coronavirus state, local fiscal recovery funds. You received some funds passed through from the Department of Finance and Administration, and this was for some purchase of land. It was $5 million for some land. So we had to audit that as well. It was a new program, and it was over $3 million, so we had to audit it, but it was one transaction. As far as financial and federal findings, I'll go into more detail in the next 2 slides, but we did issue and identify 2 findings during our audit, one in financial section and then one in the federal. But I would really like to point out, and of course, before we get into this year's findings, I think it's very important to identify that last year's finding over the untimely financial close and reporting that was resolved this year. The department was staffed in a better position, had staff throughout, the same staff throughout, which definitely set management up for success in being able to respond to our requests timely, have adequate information, and made it very seamless for our audit approach this year. The financial finding that we did identify, this is called an other matter. It's important to understand that classification, because if we were not in the state of New Mexico, this would likely just be something I would communicate to management. However, because we are in the state of New Mexico, our auditor requires us to include all findings, no matter the magnitude, no matter the dollar amount, in a department's financial statements. So this is a matter where included in our testing, we do incorporate testing over the IT structure, because information technology is the backbone, especially in this day and age, it's the backbone of any sort of financial system. So we incorporate IT control testing every year. IT is always going to get picked on. Sorry, IT, you're going to get picked on. And so as such, we did identify that there was 5 employees that we sampled, terminated employees, 3 of which did not have the documentation that they were fully terminated for the department system. And then 1 out of 6 new hires tested did not have the formal documentation. I want to express that it's the formal documentation aspect. I mentioned earlier, the management override of internal controls is one of the risks that we take into consideration. And obtaining that formal documentation is how we test that. So we're not saying this wasn't done properly. We're saying we weren't provided that documentation, that it was done timely at the time that these individuals were either terminated or hired. And we're simply just recommending that that documentation be, signed, notated, electronically documented, and then maintained in a file somewhere. This is the federal finding for this year pertaining to the fish and wildlife cluster. There was a vehicle that was disposed during the year, and it did have a net residual value greater than $5,000. Federal requirements do explicitly state that if a residual value is greater than $5,000, you do have to connect with that respective federal agency in order to determine if they're going to want a percentage of that money and the sales proceeds that you receive. They don't always expect you to pay them, but you at least need to notify them. And in this instance, the department simply failed to notify the federal grantor of this transaction. I was going to get into some high-level financial highlights, but before I get there, I will pause in case any commissioners have any questions or comments over any of these matters. Okay, perfect. I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Madam Chair. Perfect. High-level overview of your financial highlights. And again, I know you all discuss your financial transactions on a regular basis. This is high level. Overall, you had an increase in total revenue, largely driven by your federal grant activity. About $15 million, and that was the driver of the federal. Pertaining to capital projects, primarily, you had a large increase in your capital expenditures. We're going to see that on your next slide. Purchase of the upper and lower L-bar ranch, your e-tagging mobile application, and then improvements over the Glenwood hatchery. This is substantially the projects that were impacted. Again, our time period under audit is July 2021 through June 2022, just for frame of reference for these projects for you all. Other items, relatively consistent. Of course, your, service revenue is still tracking in line with, last couple of years. And then interest, that's all based on the market. You have no control over that. Oops, pardon me. There we go. Expenditures. Again, we're seeing similar movement on expenditures that we did with your revenue, as one would expect. Increased, just mentioned all of those capital projects that increased your federal revenue. Well, it's an expenditure first, and then you get reimbursed from the feds. So we're seeing that correlation here, as we would expect. No other matters of significance. The new line item called debt service, that is because of the implementation of the lease standard. So previously, that lease, this one is specifically the Las Cruces office lease, was just an operating lease. So yes, you were paying this debt service payment. You've always been paying this debt service payment. However, now it's called a debt service payment on your financial statements because of the way the standard changed. Previously, it was just categorized in your resource conservation bucket. And now it is identified in your debt service. So you'll start to see this line item on your financial statements going forward. One more financial highlight, just showing how the department's tracking with if we removed non-federal revenue and If we removed federal revenue and removed federal expenditures, how are we tracking, and would we be able to sustain operations simply on, your primarily your hunting and license revenue? Fortunately, that has been a helpful and healthy revenue generator for years past. So you have healthy, over ending net position, your equity for layman's terms. But going forward, something to keep track of. And I know, I think I've brought this up the last couple of years, and I know that I think this has been a conversation through finance committee and then the commission over the last couple of years about, the fees, the rates, and making sure that these fees are moving in alignment with inflation, simply because we know inflation has caused everything to increase exponentially, and, revenue is not necessarily trending as quickly in that direction. Just went through this, but these are just the words that I just said as we went through the last couple of slides. And on the horizon, key matter to take into consideration, another pronouncement will be implemented for this year ending June 30, 2023, which is very similar to GASB 87 for the lease standard. This is the exact same concept, except with your IT subscriptions. I know I've already had some conversations with ASD folks. It's going to really require some teamwork with your IT folks to go through all of those IT agreements and accumulate those, and be on the lookout for guidance from the Department of Finance and Administration. Our State Controller, Donna Trujillo, is in process with creating that guidance. And I believe the goal was to get something pushed out to agencies by the end of January, early February. So stay on the lookout and reach out to us with any questions or concerns. And that does formally conclude the the presentation to the commission. Happy to stand for questions, but absolutely want to commend Joe, Kelly, Paul. Really appreciate all of their hard work. Their deliverables were timely, we're clean, we're organized, and the department is just always a pleasure to work with, and greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve you all in this capacity, and look forward to being able to continue to serve you all in the future.
Laura, thank you so much. Commissioners, before we go to, this is an action item, but before we go to that action, I'd like to open it up for any questions that you might have of Laura. Okay, seeing none. I'd like to ask for a motion.
Actually, Madam Chair, my apologies. I was not fast enough with my unmute.
No, please go ahead.
I love this new role, I'm going to tell you. And I'll try not to always, chat.
No worries, Commissioner.
But I do want to say Clifton Larson Allen does a phenomenal job. Laura Beltran Schmitz, you are awesome. I tend to use that adjective a lot, but really, truly, you've done a fine job. I've seen you over the years, not only at our state game commission meetings, but in private, in some of those backroom meetings that we've had to have. And the professionalism, the thoroughness, the prompt oversight, independent third-party oversight, kind of like what the commission does over the state game commission, Department of Game and Fish. That's kind of like what we do too, is that oversight. We're not micromanagers. We don't do the hands-on work, but we do need your oversight, that independence. And so I want to echo what you said about Paul Varela, Joe, Kelly. They are phenomenal and they did an excellent job. And the findings, just commissioners, I want to say the two findings that she reported, they're nothing significant. They really aren't, but I appreciate putting them in the record. It is important, part of the transparency, part of the ethics, and it's also an opportunity for improvement. In the meetings we heard Director Sloan and the finance budget directors, they were all on top of it, and they said, we're going to make these changes. And so they get into the details. So good job. That's it. I don't have anything else other than I would move to accept as presented to approve the department's audit report for fiscal year 2022, as discussed by Laura Beltran-Schmitz.
Thank you, Commissioner Salazar-Hickey. May I get a second?
Second.
Great. Director, would you mind doing a roll call, please?
Commissioner Salazar-Hickey.
Yes.
Commissioner Fulper.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Chair Archuleta.
Yes.
Motion
With that,
passes
Laura,
unanimously.
thank you.
Thank you all.
Director.
Great to see
Laura, thank you so much for all your work, and please thank the team for us. We really appreciate everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you all. And Director Sloan, great to see you as well. Good to see you all. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Let's go ahead and move to item 13. Chief Liley, we're going to talk about migratory bird rule, 19.31.6 NMAC.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission, good morning. As you all are aware, I don't know if you can see the presentation.
We can, thank you very much. Yes, we can.
And so on an annual basis, we adjust the migratory bird rule. This is in conjunction with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We set season regulations amongst our flyways. We're set in both the Central and the Pacific Flyway. Again, working with other flyway states and the Fish and Wildlife Service. The preliminary frameworks were published in the Federal Register. We'll work with Fish and Wildlife Service for the final regulations that we can work within. Some of the changes that we really will probably see is our allocation on sandtail crane permits based on population and harvest this year. Pintail, which is one species that always gets a look at where we see a bag limit change depending on population status, will stay at 1 given the current population of pintails. We're planning on having a public meeting, which will be hybrid in March to try to get season date selections, et cetera. Again, as I mentioned, our sandhill crane allocation is probably going to be the one that would change. That said, in 2022, 2023, the season that's just ending right now, we had the highest allocation we've ever had in the history of it. The population continues to do well. We had an allocation of just shy of 1,000 birds. We'll see what our next allocation will be, but if it's in that range or higher, we have the potential to increase some more hunting opportunities. What we're looking at right here is just a proposal for the Central Flyway season on dates right now. Again, we'll go out to the public and try to see if this works, but this has been what we've been doing the last few years, seems to work well. Basically, in the north, we start the season a little bit earlier, end it a little bit sooner because of the freeze out conditions that occurred to the north. In the south, we wait to start the season a little bit later when the birds come in and end as late as possible. Pacific Flyway, you'll see there, we do not have, we're allowed a little bit more harvest days, so you'll see a little bit longer season in general, north and south zone starting at the same day. And with that, I would take any questions you may all have.
Thank you, Chief Liley. Commissioners, any questions? I'm going to give a second for unmuting. Apparently, there are no questions.
No, I have a comment.
No, you do have. Oh, I didn't wait quite long enough. Commissioner.
Oh my gosh, I love this new role, and I just have to ask a simple question. It is very nice to see you, Chief Stuart Liley. I saw here in some local news in northern New Mexico how the department is working with Los Alamos National Laboratory, possibly, on climate change and the impact on birds and migration. Is that true?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, it's partially working with them. If you all recall, about 2 years ago, we had a large die-off of migratory passerine birds moving through the state. Trying to figure out what that was. Was it climate related? Was it smoke related? What was it? So I think it's just a bird species in general. Some of our migratory bird species are struggling, maybe not as much our waterfowl populations as our passerine and neotropical migratory birds, but we're looking into what may be impacting that, and Los Alamos with some of their computer technology, et cetera, can help with that. And so working in partnership with that. You'll also see, when we go into the kind of year-end review, some of our bird studies that we've implemented across the state to look at different things that are impacting birds. So yes, looking into what may be impacting bird species from climatic to all kinds of different potential factors.
So a follow-up question to that. Will some of that information that the partnership, the collaboration that you're having on this, might some of that come into play in your public meetings or in how the department moves forward on proposed changes to 19.31.6?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, Salazar Hickey, I'm going to have to get used to that as well.
I would say call me Commissioner Sharon. Just
right.
please call me Commissioner Sharon, okay?
Yes, absolutely. And where it really comes in from, so that's the setting on migratory waterfowl seasons. We work with the Fish and Wildlife Service on a magnitude of studies trying to get at better estimation of populations, impacts those populations that will help set harvest rates, numbers, and or season dates across the whole flyaway season. So that does play into the regulation setting both on the federal and the state level.
Because conservation is very important. So are the birds. So are our recreational people who love to go look at the birds or hunt the birds. So thank you, sir. That was very good. You answered my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions from other commissioners? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item 14, the Department of Game and Fish Chiefs. It's our 2022 year in review.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I think since I was on the last agenda, I'm going to kick it off here. Can you all see the presentation there in front of you?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
So we're going to kick it off kind of keeping with the bird, not advancing for a second. Hold on one second. I apologize.
Operator.
Okay, keeping with the bird discussion and actually some of our research that we do, we've been working on, this is a northern pintail. Northern pintails winter, a fair amount of the population, the central flyway, winter along New Mexico, both on the Pecos River and the Rio Grande. And we're really trying to get a better understanding of what are those wintering habitat needs for this species. And what you see here is a former retired employee, Carrie Maurer, getting ready to release a bird that we just trapped. But we're putting a transmitter on there to kind of understand how these birds use our winter range habitat and how we can help to improve some of that winter range habitat for these birds on their migratory paths to help them when they go back north to breed and lay eggs. It's helping us to inform habitat management actions on some of our wildlife management areas, specifically the Huey Wildlife Management Area and the La Jolla Bernardo Waterfowl Complex, which I'll show you some of the work that we've actually implemented this last year. But this is a big study that we're kind of working with in cooperation with other state agencies as well in the Central Flyway and with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Moving on to a mammal actually, and not birds, but bat species. And these, one of the ones that we really looked at, this is the picture on the right, is the Double E Wildlife Management Area. And what you're looking at on the left is the lesser long-nosed bat. That bat species was recently delisted, and we're monitoring to see how those populations continue to thrive, wanting to make sure they're an obligate nectar feeding bird. They feed off of, or excuse me, bat, mammal, off of these agave plants, these agave bolts. We're also looking at, so what that is on that agave bolt is an acoustic monitor, so we can kind of see how those animals come in, also pit tag readers so we could track how they are, but really trying to understand more about these bats' movements across New Mexico. One other species we're looking at, we haven't detected yet, but is Mexican long-nosed bat, which is still federally endangered. So trying to work on improvement of those bat species as well, get a better understanding on them. Another thing that happened in the last year, not necessarily exciting, but some of the things we're keeping an eye on is in our bighorn sheep populations in the Rio Grande Gorge. About 3 years ago, they came down with Mycoplasma ovinemoniae. Mycoplasma ovinemoniae, or also known as Imobi, is kind of the precursor to some of the other diseases that can affect bighorn sheep, pneumonia, die-offs, etc. We detected it in 2020 in that population. In the Rio Grande Gorge. It was stemmed from most likely a goat. We were able to DNA type the strand back to a goat strain. It didn't have a high virulency level, so it didn't kill a lot of the animals in the Rio Grande Gorge, but it probably suppressed lamb recruitment, so lambs surviving to one age. We then all of a sudden detected it in the Red River population, that Red River population that kind of hangs along Cuesta Mine area from Cuesta to Cuesta Mine. We detected that last year. Again, not having a lot of mortality of adults, looking at lambs, but we then detected it this spring, last spring, up in the Wheeler Peak Wilderness, kind of what you see there on the right, Fraser Mountain, Wheeler Peak. We are seeing adult mortality in there, so we're trying to monitor it. We did put some radio collars on some adult animals this fall to try to see what is the differentiation. We did DNA type the Mycoplasma ovinemoniae bacteria back to that same goat strand. So most likely it was transmission amongst bighorn. So bighorn moving from Rio Grande population to the Red River population, all the way up into the Rio Grande population. So one positive is those populations are connected genetically. One negative is it moved the disease across. So it's a monitoring situation that we're dealing with right now, but just kind of one of the projects that we were working on. Going back to birds a little bit, yellow-billed cuckoo, which is a federally listed species. We coordinated with 11 partner states to conduct a range-wide survey last year for the Western distinct population segment of the yellow-billed cuckoo. Some kind of exciting things, we surveyed in cooperation with the Southern Sierra Research Station, surveyed 52 sites across the state of New Mexico, and different water courses. One exciting thing is we did have detection in greater than 23 of those sites with greater than one or more yellow-billed cuckoos. So we're starting to find them a little bit more, has some great detections. Again, it was nice to get a range-wide survey done across all the 11 Western states. Another species of greatest conservation need that we've been tracking a little bit more, this is the Western Massasauga. It has been petitioned for federal listing, but was withdrawn. Some more information that we found, but it's a very kind of more of a cryptic species than some of our rattlesnake species, a much smaller rattlesnake than some of the other species as well. So we're working on monitoring that species to just kind of keep track where we are, population status, et cetera. Kind of a little bit more challenging to find, like I said, but we're having kind of other officers in the field that where we know known locales where they could be, keep track of when they're finding Massasaugas, and other biologists working on other things. So kind of more implementing a formal detection survey for the species so we could keep better track. One of the projects that we're kind of excited about is a pretty large improvement to our Bernardo Wildlife Waterfowl Management Complex. That's what we're looking at here, an aerial photo of it. You'll kind of see here, there's different, in that left center photo, these kind of lighter colored spots, those are going to be different elevated ponds. So in Bernardo, the waterfowl management area right now, we used to flood that throughout the winter. Those fields had varying depths. It took a lot of water to flood it. So as we all know, water is becoming more scarce. We're trying to be more conscientious of it. We're leveling all those fields, and we're thinking we could cut down, and we don't have to flood everything now. We're making it to where we can flood sections depending on water levels, monsoons, et cetera, to better distribute water across that landscape while still benefiting those birds and having a much less reduced use of water. We're thinking the reduction in water that we'll need to do this could be twofold or more. Again, it allows us to move water more efficiently and effectively across, but still understanding and benefiting those waterfowl that go through that Bernardo waterfowl management area. We hope this will be completed here in the next couple of months. They're still working on it. But it also is creating some more waterfowl viewing areas for the public. And also on some of the areas, we're creating some handicap accessible hunting areas for hunters. So we're doing a combination of both for the wildlife viewing aspect, increasing some of those ponds areas, and for the hunting aspect as well. And I don't have to really talk too much about this. You all know one of the largest things that we did this last year was the LBAR land acquisition, creating the largest wildlife management area in the state, almost the largest wildlife management area in the country by the acquisition of the upper and lower LBAR. We're really excited about that. Just an update on that. We have hired a full-time employee that is now stationed at the LBAR that will be the manager there. We did have some, that property had some defunct fields on there that we have now planted in some wildlife friendly crops to help some of these wintering wildlife that do use that LBAR exclusively to help through on some of these drought years. And next month, we are planning on translocating between 100 and 150 pronghorn to the LBAR to take advantage of those grasslands that historically were used by pronghorn, have a few left, but we're bolster those populations and try to reestablish. As you all know, when we were doing our hunting season regulations last year, we created a lot of new hunts for the LBAR, and we're really looking forward to start having more public opportunities on it and working with the management plan on there. And then lastly, one of the things that I want to touch on that the division did this last year was really work heavily on our habitat stamp program and really integrating that citizen advisory program into that. In fiscal year 2022, the department expended just shy of $1 million on these habitat restoration programs across the state in partnership with the BLM and the Forest Service. We also allocated and committed $2.5 million on projects that will specifically benefit fish over the next 3 years, including major restoration aquatic projects on Willow Creek in the Gila National Forest and Comanche Creek on the Carson National Forest. In addition to that, they also obligated another $1.5 million on federal lands for this fiscal year that we're currently in, hope to complete by July of this year, that Citizen Advisory Committee. So in all, we've spent or obligated a fourfold increase than we've ever had on habitat stamp projects across the state. So really excited to see that money getting on the ground and improving habitat across the state. And then in September of this year, we solidified program direction and finalized a new habitat stamp guidance document, working in cooperation and consultation with the Citizen Advisory Committee. Had a great meeting in September to deal with that, and working with our BLM and Forest Service partners to solidify that. So kind of rocking on those and getting these projects across the landscape to see benefits where we can. I guess I do have one more slide real briefly. This is a Playa Lake. We've been working with private landowners and soil and water conservation districts in the northeast portion of the state to really get these playa lakes, these lakes that are temporary, back in working order. A lot of them were drained historically, put into a pit, and they didn't serve as well as they do when their water spread out. It works well to recharge aquifers, but we're working with landowners in this area to help restore these playas back to their functioning habitats that they are, functioning the aquifer, but also really benefiting a lot of our migratory shorebirds, water birds, et cetera, across the state. It's been a great partnership. We've worked on 4 playas totaling over 100 acres so far on restoration, and plan on doing a lot more over the next few years. So I think with that would end my segment of this.
Thank you, Chief.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is Matt Wonder, and I'm going to provide a brief overview of what the Ecological and Environmental Planning Division worked on this year. But before I get into that, I'd just like to comment that this was a year of restaffing, and we hired a new Assistant Chief, Virginia Seamster. I'm sure you've seen her. We have a new Share with Wildlife Coordinator, Karen Games. We hired a new Aquatic Riparian Habitat Specialist. Jared Watson, and a financial specialist, Susana Regalado de Corral. And they've helped us, they've helped bring the division up to full staffing. In 2022, the division worked, the Share with Wildlife coordinator identified 12 continuing and 9 new Share with Wildlife projects that were selected in our call for proposals for funding in 2023. Karen Games, the new Bison M Share with Wildlife program manager, helped develop and implement the federal grants supporting almost half of these 2023 projects and is reviewing the final products from 2022. And there were a number of species, nectar feeding bats, endemic salamanders, brown-capped rosy finch, worked with northern leopard frog, pinyon jays, Penasco least chipmunk. We've identified, worked to identify and map climatically stable micro and macro refugia in New Mexico, and we supported 2 wildlife rehabilitation centers, New Mexico Wildlife Center and the Desert Willow Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Mark Watson, terrestrial habitat specialist, has been working closely with the Department of Transportation to prepare and present the New Mexico Wildlife Corridors Act action plan. And we saw, I made a presentation last year about this. And that was required from the 2019 New Mexico Wildlife Corridors Act. They conducted virtual public meetings to get draft input. The public comments, significant numbers of public comments were received, reviewed, and incorporated as appropriate. And Mark worked very heavily with a Department of Transportation employee on that. That plan was finalized in June. And in addition to that particular work, Mark has helped in the planning and implementation of the state's first wildlife dedicated arch culvert on I-25 between Raton and the Colorado border. And this will help with the movement of large game across I-25 and ideally help improve traveler safety and reduce wildlife mortality from vehicle strikes. Mark is continuing to work with the department to get an animal detection system installed at the wildlife crossing on New Mexico 333 in Tijeras Canyon. And this project was one of the first wildlife crossing projects initiated in New Mexico, and it's been ongoing for over 10 years. And at this point, we have a designated crossing installed on New Mexico 333, and the project that we're working on would install an animal detection system so that when there were animals in the crossing, lights on signs would light to indicate to travelers that there were wildlife on the highway, and ideally, again, help with traveler safety and protect wildlife from mortality. And finally, Mark also serves as an observer and counter on the department's annual waterfowl count flights that take place every year in the fall and final counts in January. Next one. Natural Heritage in New Mexico completed and hosts the publicly available statewide riparian habitat map, which is available from the conservation page on the department's website. This 4-year project identified, mapped detailed riparian habitats for all of the state's perennial waters and river stream floodplains. And this is we're quite happy and proud of this. It'll help improve management and use of riparian habitats across the state. The Bison M the Bison M program is the department's online website that includes information on species, all the wildlife species in New Mexico. And in 2022, we updated over 700 of the 6,000 species accounts that are in Bison M, and working with Natural Heritage New Mexico, these updates added significant information on the functionality of the added significant information and functionality to the system, and that was related to the species, taxonomy, ecology, and status, et cetera. The environmental review tool was developed by the department over the last several years, and this is an online system where project proponents can go to the system, enter information about the projects that they have, and the system will generate responses indicating whether or not there may or may not be issues or concerns that the department would have over the wildlife species that could be found there or their habitats. And this last year, over 475 projects were entered into the tool and reviewed by EAP staff. And that included over 150 custom responses. One of the goals of initiating this project was to help minimize some of the routine requests that the department gets. Quintessential examples would be cell phone towers in urban areas. We would expect very little impact to wildlife in such situations, and we tried to develop the system so we would address those without having to dedicate too much staff time to those more routine projects. The terrestrial and riparian habitat specialists updated and reformatted guidelines that are consistently referenced in project reviews, especially for things that involve trenching activities and grazing in riparianous areas, respectively. And then just recently, the technical guidance staff and staff from Wildlife Management Division completed a detailed analysis of the State Land Office document wind and solar lease compliance standards. And so the biologists went through and looked at the proposed compliance standards for these renewable energy development projects and provided very detailed input on some of our suggestions on how those could be improved and made more useful to State Land Office. Next one. Ron Kellermuller, our mining and energy habitat specialist, led the effort to install a second monitoring well, groundwater monitoring well at the Lisboa Springs Hatchery, and completed 4 quarters of water quality monitoring as required by the New Mexico Environment Department. Just brief history, the hatchery and the Torero mine are part of the administrative order on consent trying to clean up the waste rock and other contaminants from that mine. And there were some used at the hatchery, and there were concerns by Environment Department about water quality monitoring. So we are monitoring that water quality and hoping to move on beyond and satisfy our requirements under the AOC. Ron also worked with the Freeport McMoran to and their contractor to ensure that access-related issues at the mine were resolved. Try to keep people off that reclamation area. Ron also conducted over 25 mine and energy development site visits in 11 counties and reviewed and commented on almost 100 solar and wind energy development projects across the state. Renewable energy is a rapidly developing field, and we expect to see many more of these projects develop here in New Mexico over the next several years. And Jared Watson, the riparian aquatic habitat specialist, spent a great deal of time reviewing over 25 complex technical and cost proposals in partnership with the New Mexico Environment Department's River Stewardship Program, which was allocating almost $11 million to projects to improve water quality and river habitat statewide. Jared's exceptional public service during this process was recognized in a letter sent to the department from the Environment Department by the program coordinator. And with that, I will stand for any questions. Thank you.
Chief, first and foremost, I just really would like to thank you so much for all the work you and your team have done. This is incredible. And I'd invite you to update us periodically throughout the year. I think everything that you've shared with us is something that we really would like the public to know what you're working on more frequently. So if you don't mind, let's work to get you on the agenda some more and more often, just because this is really incredible work. So
Madam
thank
Chair,
you.
we'd be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. And please share how grateful we are with your team. This is just phenomenal work.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm James Pittman.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We have a surprise question.
Surprise.
Commissioner Sharon.
Thank you. Actually, I'm looking forward to hearing from Chief James Pittman. But before that, this is a question for either Chief Stuart Lively or Chief Matt Wonder, either one of you. It's in September of 2021, I believe, or thereabouts, in the fall of 21, there was a wonderful partnership that occurred between the public and private sectors. The NGL Energy Partnership and MNERD, Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources Department, State Game Commission Department, we worked together in getting the Pipkin Ranch. And I guess the question is, because we did so much to benefit the lesser prairie chicken and other grassland birds and, grassland habitats. Chief Lively or Chief Wonder, do you think we might hear more about the Pipkin Ranch and some of these other habitats next time we hear from you?
Madam Chair, I'll Commissioner Salazar Hickey, I'll take that. Yeah, so absolutely, the acquisition of the Pipkin Ranch should join 2 other prairie chicken areas that were very beneficial to the species. The species is still struggling. Drought impacts have really hurt that bird. I think you'll see us coming to you all with more presentations on what we've done from a habitat management standpoint on those properties to try to increase the capacity of them to host more leks or just improve leks in general. So that piece of property in general was pretty untouched prairie, so there's not a lot of habitat restoration work that needs to go into it, as much as let it rest and hopefully encourage more birds to come on. But absolutely, we'll probably see some more discussions about habitat management for prairie chickens in the future.
Great, thank you. Chief Pittman.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm excited to share our division's year in review with you. As I go through our presentation, you'll notice there are a lot of mug shots, if you will, of the staff and I&E. I did that because I know that some of us that attend commission meetings regularly that assist with audio-visual needs, but there's a lot of staff that you might not know. You might not have a name and a face, and I think that that's important for you to know because they're the team that's behind a lot of these accomplishments that we're talking about in this presentation.
Fabulous.
So, going straight into overview of 2022, it was a very busy year for promotions and hirings. In addition to myself becoming the chief, Tristana and Ryan both moved into assistant chief roles. Janie and Stephanie were outside hires new to the department, while Desi, Michaela, Darren, and Tyler all worked for the department and then were promoted into their current roles. Hirings continue in 2023. We interviewed this week for the digital media manager. We'll interview next week for our web developer position. And as we speak, our Southeast PIO position and our magazine editor and translator position are both on the SPO website open for applications. Moving into the off-highway vehicle program for 2022, we had over 220 students at in-person OHV courses. This is a variety of different classes, some geared toward youth, some towards adults, and others that focus specifically on law enforcement officers of various agencies. We also had over 550 students in our online OHV courses. Currently, we have 5 different online OHV courses ranging from basic ATV safety to snowmobile use. We also had over 2,200 public interactions at OHV outreach events. At these events, our educators use things like the ATV simulator, which allows them to demonstrate proper riding techniques on different simulated terrains, and using things like our Safety Sam and Safety Sarah training robots. A picture of one of those robots is there on your screen. Also exciting in the OHV world for 2022, we updated all of our brochures and signs with QR codes that link back to the department's OHV webpage, which we translated into Spanish. So we have all of our OHV regulations in English and Spanish, and all of our brochures and signs linked directly to that. We distributed 9,000 of those brochures and put up 250 of those signs in high-use areas in 2022. Moving into the Hunter Education Program, last year we had 3,190 students at both in-person and online Hunter Education courses. We had 38 new instructors certified last year, bringing last year's total instructors up to 475. And we had 92 students participate in either bow hunter skills camps or hunter education camps. One of these camps also had a bilingual component, which was also new for 2022. We had 18 youth that participated in either a cow elk hunt or a doe pronghorn hunt. This is a partnership with private land. And this draw hunt is limited to hunter ed graduates who passed both of their tests with 100% at an in-person hunter education course. And for the majority of these students, this was their first time hunting. We also had 265 registered students in the Mentored Youth program last year. Something else that the hunter education team worked on was implementing a virtual reality field dressing system. So the participant wears goggles and they have hand controllers, and they are taken through the process of field dressing an elk virtually. There is a screenshot of that, what that participant's seeing on your screen. Moving into our 3 recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters and anglers and our sort of skills education programs. We had 180 students in the Responsible Hunter program last year. This is a club-based program that really focuses on advanced shooting skills. We had 142 students in YHEC, which is our Youth Hunter Education Challenge. This is really an advanced skills team competition for those that have passed hunter education. Staff also spent quite a bit of time in partnership on the Clovis Wing Shooting Complex and Archery Range, which also opened last year. We had 11 students participate in sort of hands-on, one-on-one introduction to hunting camps. This was for both squirrel hunting and turkey hunting, and this was these students' first experience hunting. In our NAS program, that's a National Archery in the Schools program, we had over 10,600 students participating in this program in 2022 from 103 different schools. We certified 195 new instructors, bringing our instructor total up to 407 for last year. And we had over 660 participants in our virtual state tournament. This year, we will be bringing the state tournament back to in-person, and that's the first time that we'll have that in person since the COVID pandemic. Staff also spent a lot of time working on developing a new 3D archery program for the department. And we had over 1,360 participants in that program last year. Moving into conservation and aquatic education, we had over 5,400 participants in conservation education events and programs. These focus on things like wildlife biology basics, species identification, things like that. We had over 6,500 participants in aquatic education events. These focus on basic fishing skills, casting skills, aquatic insect identification, fish biology. And then also new for last year, we had a virtual academy, which was really focused on getting students interested in pursuing a career in fisheries and wildlife management. And we had over 4,800 participants in that online series. We also had over 250 active volunteers in our volunteer program that assist not only with conservation and aquatic education programs, but many of the other programs that I've mentioned as well. moving into our information center and touching just a little bit on the draw from last year. So last year we implemented the 5.9 phone system for the information center. It's a much more customer friendly system. It has advanced menu options. It has a callback feature where customers can be called back at a later time. So just a much more customer friendly system. We implemented that prior to last year's big game draw. One of the other great features of it is that it allows us to do some pretty cool data tracking. So we know that last year during the draw, Game and Fish staff took 8,831 calls to assist customers to apply for the big game draw. And when you add all that up, that's over 784 hours and 22 minutes that staff spent on the phones with customers, helping them apply for the draw. In addition, we also had a video series last year that walked our customers through how to apply for the draw, gave them information on where to put in for different species. That's a screenshot of one of those videos there on your screen. And we had over 56,500 people that participated in that online series. We also had an early incentive program trying to get people to apply early through some cool prizes. We're really trying to keep the pressure off that last week of the draw when the phone lines are just really going crazy. And as a result of that, we had over 96,000 early applications out of roughly 275,000 total applications last year. Lastly, just looking very quickly at public outreach and marketing, and I did this team a very big disservice by shoving all of this into one slide, but I know I'm running out of time. So last year, our rules and information books, that's big game, that's fishing, upland, migratory, fur bearer, all of those publications, in addition to our New Mexico wildlife bi-monthly newsletters, were all published in both English and Spanish. That was new for 2022. We had over 374,000 downloads of our rules and information books, and 100,000 printed copies available. And then for our newsletter, bi-monthly New Mexico Wildlife newsletter, we had 609,000 opens of those digital newsletters. We also had our first outdoor adventure show post-pandemic last July, and we had over 3,700 people in attendance. We are moving that back to its old time slot in February, so we will have another outdoor adventure show in Albuquerque coming up next month. Staff also worked on the governor's online auction, fully online last year, and raised over $171,000 through partnership with Ducks Unlimited for conservation. And then just a very tiny snippet of our social media, looking at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We had over 66,900 followers last year. That's up about 5,500 from the previous year. Those pictures are a couple of our most popular posts from last year, one focusing on recruiting new officers and the other on cutthroat trout recovery after the Cat Canyon fire. Also, last year, we received our blue verification badge on Facebook and Instagram, which just helps with our visibility and how we show up in searches on those sites. Lastly, I would like to say that all of this wouldn't be possible without all of our partner agencies, partner organizations, other staff at Game and Fish from other divisions, our contractors, volunteers, and of course, all the people that you saw their smiling faces in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That was a great presentation. Commissioner Salazar. Vicky.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Department. I just want to echo the gratitude and also express how impressed we all should be with the work that's being done at the Department of Game and Fish. First, the Chief, Matt Wonder, talking about his full staff, Virginia, Karen, Jared, getting those new employees. Thank you, sir, with James Pittman, getting to see the faces of some of your personnel, your team. I love seeing Star Gonzalez, Darren, Ross, Colleen, Rachel, Ryan. Oh my gosh, Tristana, phenomenal job. Okay, enough said about those. Just a couple of call out things. Youth Conservation Corps Commission. Director Sloan or maybe Chief Pittman, Youth Conservation Corps Commission, just a reminder that they are another agency that if you have any projects to bring in, work with youth. I love the educational story, what we're doing with the public. So I think that's very important. And then a big toot to the commission, the commission's IT Information Education Division, because you're always in the news and you're always informing us, oh my gosh, there's the moose in Santa Fe at ski area. Oh, wait a second, there's this Bengal baby tiger cub, and you guys do a lot of things behind the scene. And so it's just a big toot, tooting your horn that you guys are doing a phenomenal job. So that's it.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question for James. Is there any ribs available yet for pickup and distribution? Because I'm getting a lot of calls. Where are the rule books? I can't use the computer. I can't see the computer.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair Lopez, right now they are available for 2023. The big game rib is available online in English and Spanish. We do have an order at the printer that will hopefully be here around the first week of February. That will be distributed to Game and Fish offices as well as our licensed vendors. So yes, they will be available this year, but it will probably be early February before you see them at vendor locations.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. We can go ahead and go on with the next presentation.
Excellent. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Gavin Lujan, the Chief Information Officer here at the department. I'll be presenting for Chief Varela as he had to attend a funeral, unfortunately. So if we can proceed with the next slide, please.
Please, thank you so much.
Okay, there we are. The financial year 22 financial audit received a clean, unmodified opinion, and we resolved a significant deficiency from last year. Generated 37.8 million in federal revenue during financial year 22, the most ever in a single year. We also increased our net position by 23.6 million during financial year or fiscal year 22. We also spent 92.5% of the total operating budget in fiscal year 22, helped purchase the Albar Ranch by establishing the grant and budget authority. Okay, next slide, please. We also successfully transitioned back into the office post-COVID without an initial negative impact to vacancy rates. The total number of customers was 121,451. And the total number of applications was 275,166 for the public draw. On the ISD side, the IT side, and this is my component, we continue to enhance cybersecurity posture. In doing this, we work closely with our sister agency, the Department of Information Technology, to align our vulnerability management. Cybersecurity is a #1 priority for us as an agency and the state as a whole. In doing so, we implemented multi-factor authentication. This helped us identify users of our system and hopefully eliminates threats and potentials for things like ransomware. We also deployed a new service desk system. This is our information technology service management system. The one that was chosen and launched into production is called Track It. We will be continuing to tweak Track It to make sure that it's efficiently run. Next slide, please. Okay, and with that, I'll conclude my presentation. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? Great, thank you. Tim, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Tim Simbal, Colonel of Field Operations Division, and I'll give you little rundown of how 2022 was for us. So this was the first year that we brought out our brand new poach coach. We started working on it throughout 2019, 2020, when we had a little bit more downtime during the pandemic. It was officially released in its first show at 2022's outdoor show. You can see there, it's got various heads from different cases where those were seized or otherwise illegal. And it's got a couple TVs in there that can run videos. So we bring these from everything from, hunting related shows also to just public outreach events, because as you know, the Operation Game Thief program, New Mexico being the first state in the country to implement one, and every other state has since followed. But that's a program that allows folks to remain anonymous and turn in poachers or wildlife violators. The importance of the poach coach is we bring that around to the public and teach the public what is illegal, because they can't make a call to turn somebody in if they don't know if it's a violation. So it's a great educational tool to inform the public, see something, say something, and you can remain anonymous, as well as receive reward monies for those. So we're going to continue to work this poach coach across the state. It just is in Roswell right now. They were at a fair down there. It will be at February's 2023 outdoor show. So I throw it out there for anybody listening. Please come by. It's a really neat show. I'll go by there and introduce myself to you if I happen to see it. Also, if you recall, earlier in the year of 2022, I presented to the commission the 2022 Make-A-Wish Foundation elk hunts. That was approved by you commissioners, and that led to 2 youth hunters through the Make-A-Wish Foundation to successfully harvest bull elk. They were both taken in the late September timeframe. I arranged for a conservation officer to go out and boots on the ground, meet the kids, get a chance to talk with them, and talk about the smile on that kid's face. They were both very successful and very happy. The 2022 Shikar Safari Officer of the Year, as you are aware, every year nominations are taken for the Officer of the Year for that, the previous year. So we're currently looking for the last year's or this next year's officer. This is Officer or Captain Mike Matthews. He's the captain over the Southwest area based out of the Las Cruces office. But this award is very prestigious. It goes over the things that the officer has done, whether it's making good cases, good outreach events, leadership style, and Captain Matthews had all of that. Also in 2022, Santa Fe annually has a fallen officers memorial. You can see on the right picture there, those are members of our honor guard. And on the left side, you've got members of our honor guard and the 2 majors and myself. This year was pretty special. We identified that back in 1941, a little history lesson, Deputy Game Warden Anais Green was killed in the line of duty. He was shot by a deer hunter. His end of watch there is 11/15 of 41. So during this last year Fallen Officers Memorial, we recognized him, and the flag that you can see I'm holding there in that picture on the left, that was presented to me representing their family, and I sent that family to Deputy Green's great-great-grandson, who is quite young, but will grow up remembering that and that honor, and their family was very happy. As we all are very aware, 2022 is a historic wildfire year for the state of New Mexico. Conservation officers assisted the public during these devastating wildfires. And what this does, it gives a little more relevancy to the department and what the officers are capable of, what they do in the neighborhoods that they live in, the communities that they serve. But we really came from all across the state to come and help these communities in this time of need. During the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire, over 5,000 hours were logged by conservation officers to help in that community. Everything from evacuations to helping at roadblocks, sometimes delivering provisions needed. Also the Ruidoso fire, over 110 working hours were spent there doing similar actions. I just highlighted one of the neat outdoor events that we did to reach out to the public. This was the Corrales Outdoor Show. In Corrales, New Mexico, there's a nice little fishing pond called the Liam Knight Pond. And right around June 4th, I think it was, usually around that time, it's the free fishing day. And we overstocked that pond with great catfish. And this year we had over 500 members of the public attend. You can see the top left and the bottom right picture. We gathered up donations of various prizes to give the kids, and they can win a prize for everything from a drawing to catching the biggest fish, smallest fish, and everything in between. This is a successful event, made successful because we have staff from all the divisions, WMD, INE, even HR come out to help work one of the booths. We bring our A game. We bring the pellet trailer, the NASP so you can shoot arrows. We bring the poach coach, all the fishing event type stuff we have. So it's really neat. We bring our four-wheelers and the different machines that we have that we patrol on. So a great outreach event, and it's very successful. And of course, as you know, a conservation officer, it's not just law enforcement. We are working with hands-on wildlife on a daily basis, everything from antelope to helping large mule deer that get their antlers stuck in whether it is, a hammock or Christmas lights, you name it, it happens pretty often. And our officers will respond and, dart that deer so it can calm down. We can get that off of it, and then we can let it go live its life again. So that's what you see in that picture, and then some banding of doves in this picture. So that's one of the biggest perks of the job, is being able to work with wildlife on a regular basis. So here are some statistics of 2022, and a lot of great pictures of the officers throughout the year, working in their various communities. We had over 50,800 field contacts. So what a field contact is when an officer is out there, boots on the ground, talking to a member of the public, whether it's a hunter or an outreach event at the Sandia foothills. All of those are considered field contacts. And over 1,980 citations were issued, everything from fishing without a license to unlawful killing, hunting without a license, those sort of things. OHV, that's our off-highway vehicle contacts, 1,800 of those occurred over the year, resulting in 190 citations. And officers participated in or put on over 230 information and educational events, and over 100 special operations. Those are your decoy operations, your swarms, things of that nature. And overall, 2022 was a great year. This is the lodge at the recently purchased El Bar, so it's going to be familiar to some of you, but beautiful place up there. And with that, I will wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kurt?
Madam Chair, unfortunately, Kirk, as I mentioned earlier today, had a MRI and a health issue that prevented him from making it into the presentation today. But if we can reschedule his portion of the
Absolutely, without question.
April, because Fisheries Division certainly did some amazing things, including moving a bunch of fish during major wildfires. I would appreciate it.
Absolutely, without question, we can do that. No worries at all. Do we have others that we need to cover, or we've been able to get everybody?
That's the end of the presentations for today.
Thank you so much. Before I pass it on, point of personal privilege, I just want to say to each of you, and please communicate this to your staff, how proud we are for the work that you've done in the last year. It's incredible. And this presentation really shows, I think, to me and to everyone, to the public, just the amount of effort you put in what we do to really, what you all do to really serve the state of New Mexico and the citizens of New Mexico. So thank you all very, very much. Commissioners, I want to open it up to you as well. Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, to all the division chiefs, just like the chair said, all good work. You know, Matt Wonder, no one really knows what you're doing back there, but we know, the public needs to know, and you're doing a hell of a job. Stuart, you're always, you know, getting the calls of the elk complaints of what can the elk do, how can I get more permits, and all the draw issues, and your staff's doing a great job. James, we see you at all our commission meetings and your staff, and they do an excellent job behind the scenes. So they did an excellent job for WAFA in Oklahoma last year, and then this year in Albuquerque. Great stuff. And Tim, Colonel, your guys are always, and gals are always out there all the time, and I contact you for various questions and your various staff, and they're on the beat, you know, and they're the face of the agency. And again, Mike, you're leading a good team, and thank you for what you all are doing and for the stakeholders of the state.
Madam Chair, if I could just take a moment to thank the commission. I know that this past year, with every big game rule under the sun, took a lot of time and energy, and everybody has strong passion about their wildlife in our state, and I'm sure every one of them reached out to you. So I appreciate the time and energy that you put in, and that doesn't get reflected in this year-end summary, but it is a great deal of work, and we really do appreciate the time and energy. And in particular, I'd like to thank outgoing Chair Salazar Hickey for her leadership during a challenging time. So thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Mike. Commissioner Fulfer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say those are some great overviews. That's very helpful for me, especially coming on and learning all this. I love hearing all what's going on. It'd be great to hear that at least once a quarter or something. That's some great overviews. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Commissioner Salazar Hickey.
Just briefly, again, echoing everything that the commissioners have said, a big thank you and a big shout out to the department. Director, I guess this is a James Pittman thing too. All of these slides that we saw today are going to be on the Department of Game and Fish website. It was a wonderful presentation, and we look forward to hearing from Chief Patton. That will be good, but I'd like to see them on the website. Yeah.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, they'll be posted with all of our presentations.
Great. Good catch there, Mike. Let's go ahead and move on.
There are a few things going on.
Just a few things, right? Let's go ahead and move on to item 15 on the agenda, general public comment. Donna, I'll turn it over to you to, is there anyone we have on?
Madam Chair, we do have a hand raised from Brandon Wynn, and I just pushed the message out, so I would expect a few more to be raised. If
Absolutely.
you're ready.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Brandon, you're permitted to talk.
Yeah, Madam Chair, commissioners, first I want to say that as far as the professional management of wildlife and habitat in New Mexico, New Mexicans are really fortunate to have an amazing group of professionals. And I would say that, you know, relative to every other agency that I have, you know, pretty deep knowledge about, Game and Fish is by far the most world-class on the professional management of our wildlife. We're really lucky to have all these people here, all the professionals and support staff across the board. And so then so I really appreciate that we have that. I love that. That's the most important thing for sustainability, right? So
thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I would like to request, so I've asked this, and a lot of New Mexicans have been asking this for years and years, for the Game Commission to tell the Department of Game and Fish to issue an annual report that shows the disposition of every hunting license that's sold in the state of New Mexico every year. And so that would be, are they resident, non-resident, by bag limit, which would be like sex, private or public. Just the public should be able to get a report every year and know where every single license went, right? So, you know, me and New Mexico Wildlife Federation and New Mexico Backcountry Hunters and Anglers put out a report this year back in October called Take Back Your Elk. And all that report was an accounting of all the elk tags, basically what I'm just asking you to have the department do every year. This stuff is buried. It took us 8 months to get past database, you know, disclosure laws and rules and IPRA. It took us 8 months, the Attorney General, New Mexico Foundation, Open Government, just to get the data to do this report, right? So this information is not public. It's never been public. And this report went viral. And all it was an accounting of the tags, and people freaked out. And they should. Like when you see what that thing says about where our tags are going in Mexico, if you don't have $10,000 by an elk permit, you know, yeah, that report ought to be kind of inflammatory. So I would just suggest it'd be better for the department, the commission, just get out ahead of it and don't let us drive the narrative. Just put out a report with the public information. This is basic public information, and New Mexico is the most difficult state by far to get this information because our license allocation system is so Byzantine and privatized. So I'm just going to ask you for the maybe 25th time to compel the department to issue an annual report that just shows the public where all the hunting licenses go. Thank you very much. And I probably went over. I apologize.
Thank you, Brandon. Justana?
Madam Chair, I do not have any more hands raised at this time.
Great.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do.
No worries.
John Crenshaw, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much.
John.
I would echo exactly what Brandon Wynn said, but I won't repeat it mercifully. The annual report that we just got definitely will be, I'm sure, up on the website. Actually, I would recommend that we go back to a system in which the game department issued an annual written comprehensive annual report, including the information that Brandon just brought up, but the information that we just heard. It would help, I hope, to demonstrate what we just saw, which just makes me so proud of this outfit. The depth, the breadth of the Game and Fish departments and the commission's responsibilities and activities are far beyond what the general public ever recognizes. They tend to kind of focus on, well, they go hunting and fishing, and that's where it stops. But the agency's work with non-game and endangered species in particular, its youth outreach, its environmental education, all those things are often overlooked, and they're great for the entire public in the state of New Mexico. Commissioner Salazar Hickey, thank you for your service as chairperson. I am one of your constituents. I probably will be in contact, and I'm very interested in your thoughts about the resident, non-resident stuff. And congratulations, Madam Chair, on your promotion. Look forward to working with you. As you know, the Wildlife Federation and sportsmen's groups in general are very active and engaged and supportive everywhere we can be of the department and commission. And with that, thank you and have a good weekend.
Thank you, John. And as Tristana, anybody else?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one more. Mark Mattini, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I am just speaking to support both of the two previous comments. I think both are important. It's important that we know where tags are going and such like, but also there's so much that you all are doing that is being done beautifully. It's exciting to hear about it each year. And I think any way we can further disseminate that, that would be terrific. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate it. And again, we appreciate all the public comment and really are very grateful for all the work that all of you do and the engagement that you have with all of us. It's deeply appreciated. With that, we'll go ahead and go on to any new business. Seeing no new business,
Madam
then we
Chair.
can, oh, I apologize,
Sorry.
Vice Chair.
I do have a couple of questions and maybe just a comment. I know House Bill 197 was introduced by Doreen and Patty Lundstrom to increase the fishing days to 2 consecutive days on the weekend. So I don't know if we're aware of that one. And of course, we have the license fee increase that Senator Campos put as well. Put as well. That's going to benefit the department with getting more funds in. That has been done since 2006. And of course, we have some other bills that Representative McQueen has put in as well. So, Mike, I guess you're on top of all of these with the department representing all that good stuff.
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, yes, we're headed over there this afternoon to work on a couple of those bills, as well as go before the House Appropriations and Finance Committee about our budget. We'll be at the hearing tomorrow, I believe, on Representative McQueen's bills. We have submitted analysis reports as requested by the LFC on all of those bills. Stuart and I are headed up the roundhouse side of it and have staff back here working on it as well. So yes, we're tracking those. It's a little hard to keep track of and make sure that we get that information out to you, but we'll do our best to try and keep up.
That's all I have.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you informing us as the bills come up and engage with us as much as possible.
I also mentioned that Senator Neville is a co-sponsor on the fee increase bill, as well as Senator Campos.
Thank you very much. Any other new business, commissioners?
I just wanted to tell the former chair, I really appreciate what you've done and really loved working with you, and thank you for all your service you've done on that. That's a lot of hard work being the chair, and want to just thank you.
Let me unmute.
Oh, it's okay.
As I said,
I saw you reaching for it.
Madam Chair, Commissioners Department, it has been a pleasure, an honor, and I'm going to look forward to seeing a lot more of you. You haven't stopped hearing from me, so. And I look forward to connecting a little bit more with others. Thank you, John Crenshaw, and everybody else that spoke today. I'm hoping to get to know all of you better. Thank you, Commissioner Fulfer and other commissioners. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. And you've left big shoes to fill. So I appreciate that. Not big feet, big shoes. Sorry. And any other items that we need to cover before we adjourn? Okay, so it's been too long. I can't remember, Valerie, if we need to make a motion to adjourn.
Either way.
No, okay, great.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Oh, wait,
Yes,
before we do
Madam.
that, next meeting, Director Sloan?
April 21, Roswell.
Great. We will see you all then, and I'm sure we'll be speaking quite a bit between now and then. And Mike, we look forward to updates, and thank you all for your time today, and for everyone that called in and looked and was watching. We really appreciate your attendance. And commissioners, as always, thank you for everything you do. And same with the staff, really appreciate all the updates today. They were fantastic. And I look forward to being able to look on the website for them. So, and we'll hear the our fisheries piece when we get back on in the next meeting. So, and hopefully, please wish him all our best with everything that's going on with him. If you wouldn't mind sending that message to Mike.
Good.
Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn. Thank you all very much for the meeting. Take care.
Thanks.